go. Just a few more logs. Matches. Fire at last. Oh, hello. Welcome to GM Danielson's Manor House Christmas. Excuse me while I was getting the fire going. As you can hear, it is a particularly cold night outside this December. So glad you could join me again this Christmas for some stories. This year, I thought we might do some readings in my library. Last year, we did some readings in the Great Hall, and things got a little drafty. And who doesn't love the smell of old books and the crackle of a roaring fire? Now, you sit here, you sit there. Capital. Care for any hot tea? Hot chocolate? I can put some coffee on too, if anyone likes. Yes, you beat me to it. Of course we have cookies. And carrots, if you've got a little reindeer in you. Naturally, why should Santa have all the joy? If he can enjoy some milk, we have that too, and cookies, so should we. Not to imply that we are all Santas. Then again, with all the gift-giving, perhaps we are. But before I begin philosophizing, let us get to some holiday stories. No, this is not a horror feature, if you are wondering. For this time of the year, I thought I would deviate from the devious path we often take and read some stories with real Christmas cheer. Just the thing on a cold night while we wait for Santa and a white Christmas. As I'm sure you'll agree, no one sets the holiday mood like Charles Dickens. Everyone knows of his great story, A Christmas Carol, but I have found a few lesser-known things that share an equally profound and warm entreaty for Christmas. Without further ado, let us begin. Happy, Happy Christmas, from Sketches by Boz, by Charles Dickens. Christmas time. That man must be a misanthropy indeed, in whose breast something like a jovial feeling is not roused, in whose mind some pleasant associations are not awakened by the recurrence of Christmas. There are people who will tell you that Christmas is not to them what it used to be, that each succeeding Christmas has found some cherished hope or happy prospect of the year before dimmed or passed away, that the present only serves to remind them of reduced circumstances and straitened incomes, of the feasts they once bestowed on hollow friends, and of the cold looks that meet them now in adversity and misfortune. Never heed such dismal reminiscences. There are few men who have lived long enough in the world who cannot call up such thoughts any day in the year. Then do not select the merriest of the 365 for your doleful recollections, but draw your chair nearer the blazing fire. Fill the glass and send round the song. And if your room be smaller than it was a dozen years ago, or if your glass be filled with reeking punch instead of sparkling wine, put a good face on the matter, and empty it offhand, and fill another, and troll off the old ditty you used to sing, and thank God it's no worse. Who can be insensible to the outpourings of good feeling, and the honest interchange of affectionate attachment which abound at this season of the year? A Christmas family party. We know nothing in nature more delightful. There seems a magic in the very name of Christmas. Petty jealousies and discords are forgotten. Social feelings are awakened in bosoms to which they have long been strangers. Father and son, or brother and sister, who have met and passed with averted gaze or a look of cold recognition for months before, proffer and return the cordial embrace, and bury their past animosities in their present happiness. Kindly hearts that have yearned towards each other but have been withheld by false notions of pride and self-dignity are again reunited, and all is kindness and benevolence. Would that Christmas lasted the year through, as it ought, and that prejudice and passions which deform our better nature were never called into action among those to whom they should ever be strangers. Now, if that doesn't begin to get you in the spirit of things, heavens, we might all have to break into caroling. Never fear, I shall save you from my tone-deaf mummings. More milk, anyone? I have a variety of quite wholesome to quite rich. No, they are not vampire cows who supplied the milk. Not that such cows could make us all crave blood. But anyway, on with reflections this Christmas. I have another here, quite short, but quite thoughtful as well. See if you don't agree. Home for Christmas. From Home for Christmas by Elizabeth Bowen. This is meeting time again. Home is the magnet. The winter land roars and hums with the eager speed of return journeys. The dark is noisy and bright with late-night arrivals. Doors thrown open, running shadows on the snow. Open arms, kisses, voices and laughter. Laughter at everything and nothing. Inarticulate, giddying and confused are those original minutes of being back again. The very familiarity of everything acts like shock. Contentment has been drawn in slowly, steadyingly, in deep breaths. There is so much of it. We rely on home not to change, and it does not, wherefore we give thanks. Again, Christmas, abiding point of return. Set apart by its mystery, mood and magic, the season seems in a way to stand outside time. All that is dear, that is lasting, renews its hold on us. We are home again. I must say, I do like these anecdotal kinds of little stories. Such a deviation from the Lovecraftian, elegantly horrific, and creepypasta. And of course, an opportunity to read without that menacing glower in my voice. So glad you are all still here, Chew. I had thought at the first taste of my cookies everyone might run, but fortunately we've only lost a few people. Perhaps confirmation of my baking skills? No, Krampus did not give me any recipes, although I know how he stole Santa's gingerbread recipe last December 26th, while Santa and Mrs. Claus had their nap. Posted it all over the WikiLeaks and all, much to the disgust of everyone, who then went and hypocritically made it to see if they too could manage the baking glory of Mrs. Claus. Now, Christmas isn't just a time for cheer in the best of circumstances, but also a season of finding the best in the worst of circumstances. Take, for example, this next little story I have to read next. The Great Winter, from Lorna Doone, by R.D. Blackmore. It must have snowed most wonderfully to have made that depth of covering in about 8 hours. For one of Master Stickle's men, who had been out all night, said that no snow began to fall until nearly midnight. And here it was, blocking up the doors, stopping the ways and the watercourses, and making it very much worse to walk than in sawpit nearly used. However, we trudged in line, I first, and the other men after me, trying to keep my track, but finding legs and strength not up to it. Most of all, John Fry was groaning, certain that his time was come, and sending messages to his wife, and blessings to his children. For all this time, it was snowing harder than it had ever snowed before, so far as a man might guess at it. And then leaden depth of the sky came down, like a mine turned upside down on us. Not that the flakes were so very large, for I have seen much larger flakes in a shower in March while sowing peas. but that there was no room between them, neither any relaxing nor any change of direction. Watch, like a good and faithful dog, followed us very cheerfully, leaping out of the depth which took him over his back and ears already, even in the level places, while in the drifts he might have sunk to any distance out of sight, and never found his way up again. However, we helped him now and then, especially through the gaps and gateways. And so, after a deal of floundering, some laughter, and a little swearing, we came all safe to the lower meadow, where most of our flock was herded. But behold, there was no flock at all. None, I mean, to be seen anywhere. Only at one corner of the field, by the eastern end, where the snow drove in, a great white billow as high as a barn and as broad as a house. This great drift was rolling and curling beneath the violent blast, tufting and combing with rustling swirls, and carved as in patterns of cornice, where the grooving chisel of the wind swept round. Ever and again the tempest snatched little whiffs from the channeled edges, twirled them round, and made them dance over the chime of the monster pile, then let them down like herringbones, or the seams of sand where the tide has been. And all the while, from the smothering sky, more and more fiercely at every blast, came the pelting, pitiless arrows winged with murky white, and pointed with the barbs of frost. But although for people who had no sheep, the sight was a very fine one, so far, at least, as the weather permitted any sight at all. Yet for us, with our flock beneath it, this great mount had but little charm. Watch began to scratch at once, and to howl along the sides of it. He knew that his charge was buried there, and his business taken from him. But we foremen set to in earnest, digging with all our might and main, shoveling away at the great white pile, and fetching it into the meadow. Each man made for himself a cave, scooping at the soft cold flux which slid upon him at every stroke, and throwing it out behind him in piles of castled fancy. At last we drove our tunnels in, for we worked indeed for the lives of us, and all converging towards the middle, held our tools and listened. I think the most endearing thing about that true account was how the men struggled through the harsh winter as though on a search for Christmas itself. Most interesting was the fact that they did not complain at all, but set to things. One never gets their real opinion of matters, only what happened. This kind of antics-free behavior is something greatly lacking in young people today, I think. I find the mindset of such people from the past to be quite admirable, and certainly inspiring on this Christmas. Now, up next is a wonderful story full of nostalgia of a family Christmas, with a particular nod to the faithful moms who tirelessly make Christmas what it is for so many children. Our Christmas at Home, from the Christmas Tree. We had been very merry all day, and as soon as the lights were brought in at tea time, we came trooping into the parlour from all parts of the house, some from the dairy, where Mary had been making butter, others from the nursery, where they had been playing at soldiers, and the rest from the apple store over the stable and the schoolroom, then used only as a playroom, it being holiday time. We were all assembled in the parlour, and after tea my mother told us that we might have a game at romps. We needed no second bidding, and so to play we went in good earnest. We played at Hunt the Slipper and Forfeits, and I don't know how many other games, till we were called into the kitchen for a dance. A good old country dance it was, in which the family, servants, and country, and all joined, noisily enough. All but my mother, who sat under a sort of arbour of holly and other green leaves, for there were always plenty of green leaves and red berries to be got in the garden and orchard, however severe the winter might be, and encouraged us with kind words and beaming smiles. After we were tired of dancing, which was not soon, I assure you, a great china bowl of raisins was brought in by John the butler, who acted occasionally as gardener and coachman as well, and was in fact a sort of jack-of-all-trades. What fun there was, to be sure, as we ran dancing and singing round the lighted bowl, snatching at the plums from the blue flames of the burning spirit, till they were all gone, and the blue flames burned themselves out. Well, snapdragon over, we had kisses under the mistletoe, and I recollect quite well how we all laughed when Papa took Betty the cook under the white-berried bough and gave her a great, loud kiss. But our fun had not yet ended. At a signal from my mother, we followed her into the dining room on the other side of the passage. Here a sight awaited us that surprised us one and all. The room was brilliantly lighted up with wax candles on sconces from the walls, and on the table in the centre there were placed a great Christmas tree, hung all over with little lamps and bonbons, and toys and sweetmeats, and bags of cakes. It was the first tree of the kind that I and my companions had ever seen. It was quite a new fashion, the Christmas tree, and my brother Tom, who had just come home from Germany, had superintended its getting up and decoration. With what shouts of joy we hailed the pretty Christmas tree, and with what glee and laughter we began searching amongst its twinkling lights and bright green leaves for the toys and sweetmeats that were hanging there, each one with a name written on its envelope. I can hardly tell you. But we were very merry, I know, and very grateful to our dear mother for her care in providing this delightful surprise as a finish to our merry evening sports. I must give special thanks to my own mother, since, much like the one in that story, she has worked tirelessly for many years doing all the special little thoughtful things that have made the holidays quite the memorable occasions. But I think it is time to head back to some Dickens, this time for his take on that most important of Christmas symbols, the Griswold family, just the Christmas tree. A Christmas Tree, from Christmas Stories by Charles Dickens. I have been looking on this evening at a merry company of children assembled round that pretty German toy, a Christmas tree. The tree was planted in the middle of a great round table and towered high above their heads. It was brilliantly lighted by a multitude of little tapers, and everywhere sparkled and glittered with bright objects. There were rosy-cheeked dolls hiding behind the green leaves, and there were real watches with movable hands at least, and an endless capacity of being wound up, dangling from innumerable twigs. There were French polished tables, chairs, bedsteads, wardrobes, 8-day clocks, and various other articles of domestic furniture, wonderfully made in tin at Wolverhampton, perched among the boughs, as if in preparation for some fairy housekeeping. There were jolly, broad-faced little men, much more agreeable in appearance than many real men. And no wonder, for their heads took off and showed them to be full of sugar plums. There were fiddles and drums, there were tambourines, books, work boxes, paint boxes, sweetmeat boxes, peep-show boxes, and all other kinds of boxes. There were trinkets for the elder girls, far brighter than any grown-up gold and jewels. There were baskets and pincushions in all devices. There were guns and swords and banners. There were witches standing in enchanted rings of pasteboard to tell fortunes. There were teetotums, humming tops, needle cases, pen wipers, smelling bottles, conversation cards, bouquet holders, real fruit made artificially dazzling with gold leaf, imitation apples, pears and walnuts crammed with surprises, In short, as a pretty child before me delightfully whispered to another pretty child, her bosom friend, "There was everything and more." That little story struck me as very much in the flavour of the Ghost of Christmas Present scene, when, in Scrooge's house, he sits atop a throne, surrounded by all the festive goodness of Christmas, the presents and the food. It is interesting to hear Dickens, in a somewhat epistolary fashion, discuss Christmas. Feels a bit more as though he is writing to us, and not at us. At any rate, I find it quite enjoyable. Up next is a tale very dear to my heart, a children's story from my own childhood. My parents read it to me, and after decades of having forgotten it, I took the old but pristine book down from the shelf and was pleasantly surprised by the maturity and themes in the tale. The Fox's Story, Jesus is Born, by Nick Butterworth and Mick Inkpen. Hello. I'm a fox. I live out on the hills. I sleep by day and hunt by night. If you're lucky, you might see me on a hilltop against the moon. But don't blink or I'll be gone. Here's my story. It'll make your tail bristle. Listen. 2 nights ago, I'm up on the hill near the town. The night is cold and clear. I lift my head and sniff the air. The scent of sheep is everywhere. There's another smell too. It halts me in my tracks. The shepherd's out. By my nose, more than one. That means the sheep are lambing. I skirt around the hill, then wait a while and listen. Somewhere up ahead, a lamb is calling to its mother. Crouching low and keeping to the bushes, I follow. Now I can see it clearly sitting in the long grass, a speckled lamb, not 1 week old. Suddenly, a blinding flash sends me running to the bushes. Shaking to my toes and blinking in the light, I freeze. Across the hill, a golden glow has fallen, and coming from the sky, the sound of singing. All at once, the air is filled with shining men. I'm scared. I cannot smell these men. They have no scent. One of them is speaking to the shepherds. "Don't be afraid," he says. "We bring good news. Great joy has come to all of you. Today in Bethlehem, a baby has been born. He is your promised king, your savior. You'll find him lying in a manger. Quickly, run and see." Suddenly, the shining men are gone. The sound of singing dies away. The shepherds stare at one another. Then, all at once, they start to talk. They laugh and shout. They jump and clap their hands. Then off they run towards the town to find the baby king. I follow on behind. I am wary of the town. It's full of sounds and smells I do not know. But I would like to see this baby king. Keeping to the shadows, I watch the shepherds disappear inside a stable. Behind the stable is a high fence. Without a sound, I'm up and over it. I'm in luck. There is light streaming through a crack in the back wall. From here, I can see everything. Inside are cows and sheep and goats. It's odd. They know I'm here, but they're not afraid. There are people too, a woman and a man, and by the door the shepherds. All of them are looking at a manger lit by a lantern. And there, just as the shining men said, a newborn baby sleeps. A king in a cattle shed. His mother smiles and tells the shepherds to come in. Quietly they stand and watch. The baby murmurs in his sleep. "His name is Jesus," says the woman softly. One of the shepherds takes something from his cloak. It is the speckled lamb, a present for the baby. He gives it to the woman, then bends close to see the baby's face. The shepherd's smiling face glows in the light, just like the shining men. He has seen a king, and so have I. Not many shepherds, or foxes, can say that. The shepherds whisper their goodbyes and leave. My belly tells me that I too must be making tracks. It is a harsh winter, and life is hard for a fox. And for you too, little king, it seems. I wish you well. I hope the lamb will keep you warm. I hope the lamb will keep you warm. Sweet dreams. Goodness, how time has flown. The fire is burning low now. Yet, even in the dying embers, I detect a glow of something special. Christmas Eve is passing. Christmas Day is near. Best be off to our own beds, friends. Some of you I see are yawning, waiting for dreams with dancing sugar plums in your heads. So many thanks for attending this year and partaking of all the warmth and stories I could offer. All that need be said, I think, apart from an invitation to attend Danielson Manor for Christmas next year, is to repeat what Tiny Tim observed nearly 2 centuries ago. God bless us, everyone, and a very Merry Christmas.